We had a Honda Sierra 450 RX, a Kawasaki KX 450X, a Yamaha YZ 450 FX, and of course a Gas 450 EX. Lots of X's in there. Yes. So we call them FX bikes. We should call them just X bikes. No, but then I get confused because there's this Honda 450X, and then there's two strokes. Yamaha puts an X on them, so we'll just call them FX bikes, and that's what you've been calling them, and I've kind of learned to do the same thing. So our biggest thing is, man, I'll tell you what. So after riding those bikes, we went and did a quick little photo shoot up in the hills. It would resemble kind of horrible trail riding because yes. The rain ruts and all that stuff like that. It was kind of a task to find places to shoot photos, but I rode all the bikes, and usually right away I get pretty opinionated, and I can pick and choose, and we swap bikes just to do photos. I was kind of blown away that there wasn't anything that stood out as being really good, and there wasn't anything that was nearly as bad as I thought it was. Yeah. And for sure, I went in with certain biases. I thought, this bike's probably going to be good at this and that. And it all kind of was just sort of wiped away because it seems like in the last few years, the manufacturers making these type of bikes, these kind of 450 off-road race bikes, have figured out how to get rid of their weak spots, their weaknesses. They patched them up. And just whether it's the bikes and the chassis getting a little bit better, just the engine tuning, different things. But I was pretty blown away that I didn't have, they didn't seem like what I thought they were going to be. And, you put them all back to stock. They were all basically box stock. We had brand new Dunlop tires on them. Yeah. We had what was the front and rear combo?
MX-33 front and AT81 rear.
Right. So they're all on the same tire setups. And that's stock on all the bikes. Except for the Honda.
Honda and Kawasaki come with 81 fronts.
Okay.
And then Yamaha and the Gas come with 33 fronts.
Okay. And that does make a little bit of a difference, but kind of in shootout fashion, we didn't want to run worn out tires, so we went all with the same. It's just kind of easier, and that way you can sort of take some of the traction stuff out. And personally, I think that's an improvement. And personally, I would have kind of wanted to go away from the 81 rear and go to maybe a different rear. Yeah. But if you're talking about durability, you're not going to beat the AT81. Yeah. So
and it's consistent. So
correct.
Across the board. So.
Yeah. It doesn't get picky about certain things. So right away, stock bikes, stock clicker settings. Yep. And then we just set the ride height because on the day that we rode it, we were riding around Saturday. We had 4 fat guys. Yep. Sorry, all you other guys. I think I was the light guy, actually.
And you were Jeff. Probably you were probably the lightest guy.
Yeah. And, cranking in at 193, 194. Although I have to tell you, our scale said I was 197, which is not bad for me. It's really bad for all the bikes because we weighed them, filled all the tanks up. Yeah. And we weighed them, and you got those numbers?
I do.
So, and the scale doesn't lie, but the brochures do because they don't often weigh them with gas in there, and so you can go ahead and rip those off. I don't even know. I yelled off the numbers, but we were doing front and rear, and so I don't really even know. But I'm just going to kind of guess off the top of my head based on what I felt, and I'm going to say that the Hondas used to be really light, but I know they've gained weight in the past, and I'm going to say the lightest bike was the Gas.
Yep.
Yeah, and it definitely feels like it when you're riding it. Second, I'm going to go with it's not going to be the Kawasaki. I want to say is the Kawasaki the heaviest?
Nope.
It isn't.
Nope.
That's Yamaha's the heaviest.
Yep. Yamaha's the heaviest.
That's surprising.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest.
Doesn't feel the heaviest.
Yeah, it doesn't. It almost feels the lightest in reality, but I knew it was heavy. And then so the Honda's second lightest.
No,
it's
Kawasaki's.
Kawasaki. Wow.
It does have a small tank on there though, so that kind of
right. And the Honda has a big tank.
Yeah,
and that does affect it. That extra gas. Yeah, what's the Honda? The tank is.
I think it's 2.2. Then the Kawasaki's 1.6. I want to say.
Right.
So that's a few pounds. That kind of bridges that gap a little bit.
Yeah, that's
At least.
that would kind of make them a little bit more similar.
Yeah.
But you when you're riding them, it's like the gas definitely, like I said, feels. I would say riding the bikes, Yamaha feels lightest, gas second lightest, then the Honda, then the Kawasaki.
Yeah, for sure.
And just kind of weight feel. And people say, oh, that's horrible. The weight of the bike, and it's like,
weight can be your friend.
Right.
Weight can be your friend.
Yeah, it kind of adds stability and a certain amount of planted, and so I think we're at the point. They were really, Honda added weight to their bike on the motocross bikes. They had super light bikes and actually started letting the weight come up. And whether people will say, oh, it's because cost. Light costs a lot of money, and they could make it a little heavier. But at the same time, I don't think it has that much of an adverse effect. We're kind of at this happy place. If they had a lot of money, they'd get rid of some unsprung weight and lighten up some spinning parts.
Yeah.
But that's expensive.
Yeah.
And so I don't think for most guys that the weight, the actual scale weight is that big of a deal. And just going that the Yamaha's, so heavy on the scale, but so light feeling when you're riding it. And we're not just saying that because we're sponsored by Yamaha.
No.
It was okay. Here's the other interesting breaking news. On the first day of riding, so we went out trail riding, and then we came back, and Glen Helen had its motocross track open for practice, and so we started riding the bikes around, switching the bikes around there, just to mostly get a feel for how we wanted to do setups in the thing. Is anybody trying to join the?
Yeah, Jeff is trying to
join in. We'll tell him I haven't seen him pop up here, and we'll see how it goes. But when you I wanted to ride the bikes kind of all around, and did he pop up? Oh yeah, let's let him join. He's in the waiting room. We got to fix this. When you're riding around the track, I was just kind of thinking, hey, what's the best way to, the directions of change you want it, or do I like it? I don't want to change it. And it was interesting with our guys. Everybody else comes from competition bike background.
Yeah.
They're riding race bikes, motocross bikes that are set up for off road. They're riding these type of FX bikes, and they all felt the forks were soft.
Yep.
And I'm the only guy sitting here complaining, oh, these forks are kind of stiff, And it was just sort of what I was used to, but I got comfortable with it really quick. And then, hey Jeff, we're gonna have you in here, and feel free to chime in. I think the audio will be up loud enough. You can hear us okay, right? Oh, we don't want the echo. Which phone? Where is he going to come out of?
Should come out of yours.
Yeah.
Mine's muted.
So Jeff, say hi to everybody. I'm not muted. He's not? I can't hear him. Is he talking? Let me set my volume up. This is how we do things. We try to do things. We try to innovate on this show. Let's see. Mic's all the way up. There we go. Oh, he's not muted. He's unmuted, from what I can tell. Yeah. His video keeps turning on and off.
Yeah.
Jeff, say hi. Plug in. Oh well, we'll let him figure it out. When you get a really loud screech,
he can't hear us
on the feed. Oh, you can't hear us? I wonder why. Maybe because
you can hear him.
Listen to this awesome sound quality on tonight's Tech Talk Taco Tuesday, brought to you by Yamaha.
You can hear me? I can't hear you guys at all.
Okay, we can hear you now. So Trevor's going to fix our problem.
Can't hear you. You guys hear me at all?
We can hear you just perfect. And so now I'm going to adjust this microphone over. Oh, you can't hear us. That's on your end. I'm 99% sure that's on your end. Does that work there? We can actually edit this out, but there's no way we're going to take the time to do that.
Too much. We're not that professional. We don't get paid enough.
We have professionals for that. So when he figures out how he can hear us, then we'll be in better shape. But this is like me. It's like he's just like me on the other side of the
Todd
computer.
As well.
Okay, I'm going to let Todd in really quick. And
there we go.
Admit Todd.
So if I unmute my phone, he can hear us.
Okay.
But then
then we get echo. So I can mute mine.
Okay.
Hey, this is what COVID was like for everybody.
Can you hear us now?
There we go.
Okay.
And we can hear you, but we need to make him loud enough so that he gets on the show.
Can you hear us, Todd, Jeff?
I can hear you guys.
That sounds good. So we're going to make sure that the show can hear you because we're checking audio levels right now. We're like sound engineers that talk about dirt bikes.
Great. You guys are doing real good.
Good. Look, it works.
It does.
Yeah, we're in business. Tech Talk Taco Tuesday back in business tonight on Monday. So, hey, guys, thanks for joining in. And like I said, feel free to chime in. We've already, given everybody everything they need to know, so you're late. The Yamaha is the best.
Obviously.
Yeah, this show is sponsored and brought to you by Yamaha.
Yes.
So just, you know how I am. Hold your negative comments or I'm coming over to your house. Now, we talked about the weight. So which Jeff, did you hear us? Do you know which one the heaviest was?
I thought. Let me think about it for a second. I thought it was the Yamaha was the heaviest.
So you saw did you see the numbers?
Trevor showed them briefly to me in the beginning, and to be honest, that was days ago, so it went right out the brain. You know what I mean? But I kind of thought the Yamaha was, and then I thought the gas gas was towards maybe second to last.
It was the lightest. But when you're riding around the track, which is the lightest bike?
I felt like the Cowie had one of the lightest feelings.
See, and here's this is the interesting thing about like shootouts, comparisons, and stuff like that. Everybody gets an opinion, and everybody has a different idea of what they feel. Mm-hmm. And like both Trevor and I kind of were of the thing that the Kawasaki kind of feels the heaviest on the track, and then I'm kind of the Yamaha and the gas tie for the lightest feeling on the track. And it I think a lot of it depends on how you ride.
Yeah. Like
if you're kind of rough on the throttle, like herky jerky on the throttle, especially with the Yamaha on the stock map, that bike can get heavy.
Yeah.
It kind of shows you that it's a little bit heavier. But does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Todd, he's in here. Right. If you, like I said, I think what we're going to do is if you have questions, go ahead and use the chat. If you want to type in a question, and then we can monitor it on your thing. Upside down though.
Upside down.
We have to read it upside down.
Yeah.
Because we don't need to see our things here. We've just got to. What do we have to do? We have to. I don't know. My thing wants to do airplane motors. Brent joined in?
Yep.
Okay, I'll let Brent in too.
This is my first Zoom call ever, so I have no idea what I'm doing.
It's motorcycle view. Brent's got to be a professional at this.
Oh, I think he's on Zoom call number what, 5 or 10 today?
Yeah.
Look at his background's all nice.
Oh, he knows how to do like Ricky Braybeck taught me how to blur out the background. Yeah, we started trying to make better and better backgrounds for this show. But those of you that are new to this is the show where we talk about motorcycle related products. Tonight we were talking about the 450 FX bikes. Brett, did you see the scale weights of the bikes?
I did not.
Good. This is a perfect game. Which was on the scale? Which was the heaviest bike? Based on
probably Kawasaki.
See?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Guess what, Jeff? You're out.
You're fired.
You're
gonna get canceled now. And okay, based on what you felt on the track, which was the lightest bike?
Gas for sure.
Okay, yeah, interesting. So that is the heaviest is actually the Yamaha, and then the lightest is the gas by what? Probably 4 pounds, 5 pounds.
The gas was by like 5 or 6 pounds.
Yeah. So, anyways, do you want to read off those weights?
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah. Now that we've kind of given up the ghost.
So gas that comes in the lightest at 242 pounds. The Kawasaki is second at 247. The Honda is third at 250.5. and the Yamaha's in fourth at 254.5.
Wow. And then just for comparison, we also weighed a Yamaha WR
Yep.
450, which was 262 pounds.
Yep.
Which kind of shows you, the difference between adding those lights and all that stuff like that. And then most of the motocross bikes are in the 230 somethings. They're just a little bbit lighter. So I mean, the FX bikes don't have a whole lot of extra stuff on them. But anyways, okay. Where should we go to? Everybody wants to know which is the fastest. Okay, starting with Jeff.
I mean, the Yamaha to me had the biggest motor of a pull, to get you around by all means. I don't know. I mean, obviously we didn't get to ride it very top endish, but it did seem to flatten out a little bit towards the top.
Yep.
Where I think that was one thing with the Honda and even the gas. Like I felt the gas was smooth and just kind of pulled that same thing all the way up into the high revs. Where I feel like the Yamaha flattened out.
Yeah, I can see. I don't think it flattens out. I just think it revs through the top power a little quick.
Yeah.
And yeah. Brett, most powerful.
I would definitely say the Yamaha. I mean, it may blow through the top a little bit, but it gets there so hard and so fast. If you're drag racing, I gotta believe that thing's gonna win most of the time.
Yeah, it's the most lively. It's the most like 250F-esque in the throttle response and how quick it is. Now, like kind of saying like which is the most powerful and stuff. I kind of think, and it was sort of confirmed just by where I had to get on my brakes. I felt like the Honda was the most powerful. Like it seems like it was really, I mean, it was kind of like mediocre, but it pulled so good up hard. And I'm really careful about when I start talking about top power. I make sure that I'm, throttle's wide open and it's pretty near peak RPM.
Yeah.
I when I start talking about top, where a lot of times, and this is where the Yamaha really shines, if you're doing more opening the throttle up and pulling, it's so responsive that makes it feel like it's top there.
Yeah.
Gas for me was just super, I call it traditional 4-stroke, almost like low power in the beginning, but really smooth, never really revs all that fast, but it wasn't slow.
No.
I don't think any of these bikes are slow. And then the Kawasaki is almost exactly the same, with maybe, for me, too much. Like when it goes from transitions from mid to top, I had the wheel light up a couple times that I just didn't expect it to light up. And I'll talk about some of the changes I made and why I made them in a little bit, but were you kind of in line with that?
Yeah, I think so too. The one thing, like the Honda, I felt like it revved out pretty quick, and you kind of ran through the gears really quick as well. Like the Kawasaki and the gas more like a second, and the Yamaha as well, like a second, third gear, fourth gear kind of bike. Whereas
Right.
like the Honda, you're just like it's always in third, fourth, and fifth, and like that back straightaway on the SRA GP, I was in fifth, and like kind of revved out before you even leave the REM track almost. It's like the Yamaha and the gas a little bit. You like barely hit the rev limiter.
And that was on Sunday.
On Sunday.
So the interesting thing is, most of the day I think the Honda was in map 3. On Saturday,
Okay.
on the aggressive day, and so that's the aggressive map, and I ended up racing it in the stock map. That was one of the changes I made to the Honda, and it felt like, for me, it was too much in that aggressive map.
Yeah.
So maybe, and I think you're riding it the same way I did.
Yeah.
Where, but I felt like, and maybe it's just that I'm heavier, and I got it to hook up better and stuff. I can see where if any of these bikes, if they get light and unweight them, they'll spin up. And I mean, just nature of the beast. So
I think that's where the Kawasaki and the gas are a little more, I don't know, maybe forgiving might be a way of saying. I mean, they're still fast as hell, but they don't punish you quite as much if you just get a little bit, lose a little of your finesse and your throttle hand.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can get away with a little bit more on those bikes.
I
maybe
totally
easier on you.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's funny because some people say that's like a like, oh, it's better for the novice or something. Like, none of these bikes are great for a real novice because you know all you want to do is just twist these things. That's why I get a 450, and they're all just they've got some boost, and everyone even. But I think as far as responsiveness, throttle responsiveness, I would say Yamaha, Honda, Kawasaki, gas. Yeah. When I switched between, I went from, I think it was the Yamaha to the gas. I like literally I thought it was like, well, go, it was like get up and go, and then you just realize, oh, this thing just doesn't have that kind of throttle response, and then. But vice versa, one of the things I switched on the Yamaha for Sunday was we put my map, the smooth map, in the number 1 map, which is really important because I guess you switched it on Saturday and you put it in the number 2. And for me, it kind of counteracts it. It kind of puts it back more to a stock. So anyways, we have a really good, call it a smooth map, but in reality, if you look at the numbers, it's actually quite a bit more aggressive. Mm-hmm. And it just kind of fills in that little gap at the bottom. So on the bottom, it's actually more choppy, but I find myself riding a gear high, which is kind of hard to do on that bike because it is a wider ratio gearbox. Yeah. And then it mellows the revs at the top. So it makes the top, for me, more like what the gas is doing in essence, is kind of being smooth. That is, again, Yamaha sponsored the show, but that Power Tuner app is like getting, let's see, 5, 6, 7 cams. Yeah. 22 different pipes with different inserts, 5 different throttle bodies. Yeah. Yeah. Well, all in one of these phones. Actually, both of our phones have it.
Yeah. I think we changed it because I changed it for, I think Todd was on the bike. Maybe he can elaborate a little bit, but like just I think we put the magic map in on map 1. And that kind of like transformed the bike for him.
Yeah. That map was excellent for me.
And I hate that map. Like I said, right? Nothing to get. I mean, it's just like it's just like where you like to where you think the power should come on, how far you turn it when you twist the throttle. A lot of people talk about putting like different throttle cams in and different things like that, and that's the mapping does a lot of that stuff, and that's what's so cool. Kawasaki has couplers you can switch. The Kawasaki, I switched to the aggressive coupler because I like smooth power. So what do? I go to aggressive. I go to the most aggressive maps. Usually I can get. The Honda's the only exception. I go to the most aggressive map I can get, and I just start riding at a gear high, and so it ends up working.
If I could add something, yep. I think for anybody out there that hasn't played with maps on their bike, do yourself a favor and play with the maps. Yeah. It's dramatic, and you're missing out on what your bike is capable of. By playing with this stuff. It's amazing, really, like what you can do with a modern 450. Yeah, just with map.
Any bike that allows you to do it however you're able to do it.
Absolutely.
And I'll tell you just from my experience is the manufacturers, especially for drivability and rideability, do a much better job, maybe too good of a job sometimes, and that's why people are always jumping into these aftermarket ECUs. That a lot of times tend to be tuned on the dyno, and they make really good power on the dyno, but like sometimes they kind of forget about like the trailing throttle or smooth, and that's where like I said, the Yamaha Power Tuner app is so nice to be able to change. But all of like I said, the gas was the only one that suffered from this. I really wanted to have an aggressive map to kind of see.
I think you can unplug a plug in the gas. There's a plug under the tank that you can unplug to change it.
Yeah, you can. You can switch, and you can buy the switch. There's a switch you can just buy and plug in.
That you can add, which is on the KTM and the Husky already.
Correct.
But underneath the tank, I think that you can plug or unplug something to change the map.
Yeah, there's a way you can, like I said, there's a way you can do it without a switch. But literally, sometimes I just want to have a switch so I can try it.
If you're testing it, the handlebar switch is nice. It's just a cost thing for the gas, obviously.
Yeah. Because once you kind of settle on it, then you don't need the switch anymore unless there's times like, I don't know, sometimes I want my bike to haul ass. Yeah. And I've worked with manufacturers before when they're developing these maps, and I'm like, this is America. We want one that's not very practical, but we want it to rip our arms out of our sockets, please.
Yeah. Well, They should call it a sand track map.
Yeah.
Really. Well,
Right.
Yamaha has one. I think they have a. That's the nice thing about the Yamaha too. If you don't know what you're doing, and you just bought it, they have you like preload 3 maps. And I think one wasn't one called sand, or it was back in the day. I don't know if it still is now.
Yeah, they always have a smooth, a hard track, smooth, slick, and then they have an aggressive.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
and it's, you can see what they are and you can see what they do to get these maps, and then you can kind of fine tune it. It's like, hey, this one hits a little bit hard. You can take, 1 or 2 off of some numbers and all these things. But yeah, it's kind of a cool thing. And then I want to get into suspension now, but all of my suspension complaints, remember, like all you guys are all the same, and I'm the weird guy out in suspension, so don't feel bad when I tell you that.
You ride Husabergs.
Yeah, I did ride a Husaberg, 650, by the way. Trevor rode it.
I did.
Trevor has some experience. Actually, I got to ring the bell. Okay, but so we were talking earlier about the suspension. I was the only one that kind of felt like they were a little stiff in the beginning, and everybody else said, "Well, they're too soft." And it kind of comes. There's our background. I'm not racing a whole lot, not riding motocross bikes a whole lot lately, especially, and so I'm coming off of EXCs and mushy, we'll call them mushy bikes. And I learned really quick what I was doing was I was sitting in the middle of the seat going into the turns, and I couldn't get any of these bikes to turn. And then just because I do this a lot, switch a lot of bikes, the next day I rode, I scooted forward, and all of a sudden now they work magically. And we actually stiffened up the gas with some air pressure, and that was really the only suspension change we made between the 2 days. But from being too stiff to perfect based on just me modulating my body, and this is the bikes across the board. Frankly, I'm blown away by all the suspension. It's, I think, really, really good, especially because I don't think some of these bikes are really designed for, we'll call it Glen Helen, West Coast conditions.
No, because even like
no, definitely not. I think the majority of them aren't.
Yeah, because I rode the Yamaha. Me and Jeff, we rode at Kauai the weekend before, kind of like our first impression. And there's a lot more tighter trails, nothing high speed or big. And I thought the Yamaha suspension was really, really good there. And then fast forward 1 week, it's same bike, same clickers, everything, and it wasn't as good for me.
Right. And I think I have it figured out. But Brent, what did you feel about suspension?
Well, I felt they were all too soft for me. Being the biggest guy out there, I felt like I was just riding deep into the stroke, and so I was actually getting that hard, kind of that harsh feeling you get when a bike's actually soft. Kind of the opposite of what you might initially think. And I was feeling it. Interestingly enough, I felt it probably the most in the Yamaha, especially in the morning when things weren't too rough. That I was just getting a lot of feedback in through the bike, and I just felt like I was riding too deep into the stroke, especially coming into some of the braking bumps. I mean, I was really aware of how much I was getting into my hands. Then, interestingly enough, as the track got rougher, speeds came down maybe a little bit, and maybe then I was just pushing harder through the suspension. Then I stopped feeling that as much, but everything was rougher at that point. But I think, we didn't even touch a clicker, didn't adjust, sag, nothing. So I'm riding the bike at, our weight 225 on my best day, probably 230 something on this last weekend.
But you're also 6 foot, what, 9, 7?
Yeah, depends on which day.
Yeah, it's also a variable.
Yes,
but
I'm kind of like an upside down grandfather clock. All that weight swinging back and forth. So which always means that I'm usually running pretty stiff forks, just because when I transfer weight, especially standing in a standing position, I transfer weight, get on the brakes. I'll transfer a lot of weight onto the forks. And so one of the things I'll notice on a lot of bikes is kind of you get that squirminess. Interestingly enough, I didn't get a ton of that out of any of these bikes. Most of those when I struggled at all, was just as I settle into the turn and then keeping it tracking smoothly without kind of popping me up or standing me up a little bit. I felt a little bit of that, and I think some of that was just needing a little bit more hold up. I mean, I really wanted to go just put 10 more pounds in the gas forks just to kind of go out and see how that would change it. But wasn't really the purpose of the day.
Yeah, and the other problem with that, I mean, it's like you start bringing up the front end, then especially being a pendulum like you are, if you get the front end up, then you lean back, and then the back's overly soft, and then you're kind of fighting a battle. But yeah, it's in. And that being said, that we set the kind of the standard sag for all of us 200-pound guys. We kind of got it to where it was doing ride height, and we're and Todd could clarify this. We're probably at the limit on those springs. I mean, as far as
dependent on the bike,
yeah,
each one of them is a little bit different. The Yamaha rear spring is closer, but what their recommended sag is different actually than what you were setting it at.
Right. Because they want it.
They actually want it really tall in the back.
Right. They want it high.
Correct. Yeah. Which would accentuate the problems actually.
Yeah.
With that bike, it would kind of make it worse in the front, which is what we all kind of thought was the hold up on that bike.
Yep.
So certain things there. The Kawasaki actually has fairly stiff fork springs as well as the Honda. Just the damping is less than. So the Yamaha has a lot of damping and light fork springs, and there's a lot of trade off there. You could get away with a lot on the Yamaha just because of the amount of damping that it has, even with the light springs, where you're not going to get a lot of bottoming. It's not going to blow through.
Yeah, and
it just feels low. And,
yeah, the Yamaha just has a suppleness.
Correct.
That allows it, like I said, so when you're in those kind of UTV bumps or that kind of chop stuff, it, for the most part for me, and I think Brett felt differently also, is I felt it like doing really good there, but when you start getting these bumps that cause the bike to pitch, and then you go past that supple part into the harsh part of the stroke, whether it was front or rear, and the bike started, yawing back and forth, that's where it wasn't really that happy. Where some of the other bikes, they didn't care nearly as much.
Exactly. We kind of cheated on this just because the Yamaha's been the same for a few years, and as far as myself and Trevor, we know that a set of fork springs does wonders for the Yamaha. Like it changes it pretty dramatically. Yeah. And there's certain things that you can do, very small things that you can do for each one of the bikes that'll change it pretty dramatically. And the Yamaha in particular, a set of fork springs is a really easy way to make that better, especially for West Coast conditions.
Yeah.
Just to keep the front up a bit.
Yeah. And that's why coming down there. And when you go into those braking bumps and stuff like that, that bike was a lot more prone to kind of get in and then cause the back end to buck a little bit. Where the Kawasaki kind of didn't care. So again, light feeling bike that kind of has this twitch, heavier acting bike that just kind of plows through a little bit of stuff. So Jeff, any thoughts on the suspension?
It was kind of neat to see it all. Like I said, we were all doing it on a stock level. So for me, that was really cool because talking about at the bottom of the hill, as the day went on and how rough that got and those braking bumps got, I purposely tried to keep that same speed on each bike in the same line to see, how it would react and what it did. And I was quite surprised on how the front forks felt on the Cowie. To me, it felt like that thing just did not absorb it as well as I think like any other bikes. For me, the Honda absorbed everything a little bit better. Less feedback with the back end coming up on me, but I try to keep my body position the same, to try to mimic it, time after time. And for me, just that Honda, the way it was balanced, like I said, my weight, my ability, whatever, however I was riding it, but it just really stayed the same, more neutral for me, less feedback coming through those bumps. I mean, obviously before Todd would touch it for me or do something, but as a stock setup, I was pleasantly surprised to see the little bit of difference between all of them. But even the gas for me, I mean, yeah, the air was probably a little light, but it tracked it, I thought, pretty well too, to be honest. But yeah, I was just kind of surprised with the Cowie. I didn't realize the difference in, like I said, I'm not a suspension guy. I go to Todd for that, but just the feedback and the valving and spring rate, whatever, the way that chassis set up. But I kind of thought it would handle it a little bit better than it did.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing. So on Saturday, the Honda overall worked really well for me. And the same thing when we were riding around on the trails, the Honda was a little bit dancy and a little kind of too stiff. And then the very first time I rode it around the track in the earlier part, when it wasn't as kind of rough, there weren't the holes, but there was the kickers. The Honda was a little bit, I don't know about this. Is like I was just too stiff everywhere. But then as the track kind of developed in and got those bumps, it started working magically. And I was like, this is the 450R I remembered from a couple years ago when like I was the only journalist to say this thing's really good. Everybody else is like complaining because the forks were too soft. So yeah.
That seemed to be the common theme. Just hearing you guys talk, and with myself as well, is like the Honda seemed to be like the stiffest yet most balanced of all the bikes, at least for Saturday. It's like some of the bikes had like soft front end and soft rear end, whereas the Honda was more balanced front to rear, but also the stiffest, which because a lot of guys were thinking everything was too soft.
Yeah,
What did you think compared Saturday to Sunday? I mean, I know personally, I've ridden tons of bikes, thought I had them just right, and then I go race them, and I learn a whole bunch more. So, just curious of what you guys thought once you wound up on a bike that you felt like was right or wrong, and then in the race conditions where you're having to charge through some of those square edge holes and some of the stuff you might just kind of maybe not put 100% into just because it's not that much fun.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that like this track sections of track that we used were the same. Both days they were kind of the same after the first race. There wasn't like the track was that much different. But what really just the little tiny changes I made, and most of the changes, like I said, except for the gas fork, which I kind of did just because I know with that fork, I've always liked, 3 to 5 pounds more than whatever they recommend because I'm a little bit heavier and that's just been kind of a standard thing all the way. So I said, yeah, I think that's the right direction. And I wanted to at least make some kind of a suspension change on a bike to see whatever difference it made. But the biggest difference was in the engine characters. And because I kind of used the engine a little bit because I know what this, I know what the suspension is going to do. I can kind of use it to kind of get me through the bumps and stuff. So I don't think much changed in how I was riding, or I kind of go the same speed no matter what. I don't like push it because I'm racing. I kind of try to push it a little bit when I'm testing the bikes because that's when you feel things. But I don't think much changed except on Sunday. The Yamaha for me, because I fixed the motor, the suspension got way better. And the chassis felt more nimble. It didn't feel as even though it's light, it just got lighter without being twitchy. The Honda Honda did everything well. It just wasn't as comfortable as some of the other bikes. Yeah. And that was probably the only bad thing I can say about it. The Kawasaki was the bike that didn't care. And it like I said, I hyped up the motor a little bit, that curve. It just everything on it worked great. It didn't do anything bad, and it didn't do anything like stellar, except for it was like really stable and really planted.
Yes.
And that was it. And then the gas was kind of the same thing, where it didn't do anything bad and it didn't do anything great. It was just kind of. And so I raced all these bikes, and I didn't feel like I was going any faster on one of them as opposed to another. And I don't think anything changed. We had some high speed straightaways where I hit the rev limiter on the Honda, the Kawasaki, and the gas. The Yamaha was the only one that I still had more. There was more speed to come, but it was it has a little wide ratio there, which kind of helped. It was an advantage in certain spots, and then the one time I dropped it into first gear on accident, and I almost went over got thrown over the handlebars. I'm like, whoa, that's a low first gear where you can, you're actually going down to, don't mean to, but I did on purpose go to first gear, and the other bikes, it's kind of usable on the track. But yeah, suspension wise, I don't think anything really changed, and it blew me away by, like I said, how good they all are for just being stock and not having to change it, but then how much they're interconnected with the chassis, and the engine can kind of affect all that stuff. And I would hope that most riders would actually take the time to play with the clickers and stuff more, because any little kind of thing like the Honda Honda's the only one I struggle with because I know what the clickers do from riding them so much. I don't know if I could get the comfort without causing some other issues on that. I think they're kind of at the limit of the comfort. Where the Yamaha, I definitely know I could click it around and get better, but I just didn't want to start chasing it because it was good. Gas, same thing. The air in the forks, didn't want to chase anything. And the Kawasaki, frankly, it was like I probably could have gone a little bit stiffer on all the clicks, and it might have made me happier, held it up just a little bit more. But that's sort of what I felt the next day. So, Todd, how do they compare to your new KTM?
Well, I had a first on Sunday that I've never had in my life. It was somebody passed me on 3 different motorcycles in the span of a half an hour during a race. Which I've never experienced before, so that was really good. I'm glad. First times are always good. Sometimes they're bad, sometimes they're good. So this one was bad, but it's all life experiences. So
hey, don't worry, we got video. You sawing me off in a couple turns. Trevor saw it.
You did.
it was
a good time. I wish I would have had the energy to ride them on Sunday because I really think that Sunday is their intended purpose. Really, I mean they're supposed to be off-road race bikes, and obviously I was racing my own bike and I did 2 classes and all that stuff, and by the end of it, like I was done. I couldn't ride it anymore. But the fact that being able to ride them on Sunday, I think would have really been the acid test. The track was short. It was the first hot day of the year, and if you've ever been to an SRA, they set up really rough, a lot of square edge bumps, and it's really aggressive as far as suspension and handling. And if your bike works at an SRA race during the summer, you can pretty much go anywhere. So that's always what I use as the test bed. And it was good that you guys got to ride them on Sunday, I think, to really kind of see what they're really about.
Yeah, it was.
I think that's really good.
It was awesome. SRA. I mean, I haven't been to an SRA, and we're trying to think of it. It might have been 10, 12 years. I haven't raced one. And
they're so fun. They're just so
super fun. I still, like, people say I want to get into racing or something. I just go to an SRA. Yeah. It's just a fun course.
Yeah.
Super laid back attitude. I mean, you got some fast guys, you got some really slow guys, you got guys riding vintage bike. There's a guy that was riding around and his pants were falling off and he gave me a butt crack, like twice because
Side note, do you remember I was behind you? You're riding a Kawasaki, I think, and you almost killed a little kid.
Oh, you mean the kid that was trying to ride his mini bike across the course? And I yelled at him. I pulled up next. Yeah, I yelled at him, and then
when that happened,
and then I went to the next turn and tried to clean out our video guy. Yeah. You don't want to mess with me on a track. I get kind of mean. I'm happy when I'm done with it, but that's why I don't like to race.
Oh, shoot. Well, you didn't run into me, so that's good. You passed me 3 times on 3 different bikes that didn't actually make contact. So
I wasn't really racing. I was just trying to feel. I needed to put the bike in a race-like environment.
That was good. It was a good thing.
So, Trevor, what'd you think?
Oh man,
dude, you should have seen the whole shot he pulled in the 450 Pro class, which he won, by the way.
I won, yeah.
And Trevor won the 450 Pro class, but unlike me. Yeah, unlike me, like I took off with all these guys, and I was switching the bikes. I stayed in 3rd place in my race.
I stayed in 1st place.
Yeah, but there was only one guy in your class.
I took him out in the first turn. Got rid of that real quick.
It's always a good plan.
Yeah, that worked out.
Competition as early as possible.
Yeah.
What did you ride, Trevor?
What was that?
Which bike did you ride?
Rode every one of them.
I switched at the end of every lap. I'd switch bikes.
Oh, even in the pro race you did that?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, there was nobody else left in his class.
Start on.
Yeah.
I started on the Kawasaki.
Massive hole shot.
Yeah. I missed the shift. It would have been bigger, but couldn't get the shift right.
Massive hole shot, and then slam the door in front of the pro pack, and all those bikes flying and people cartwheeling, and Trevor just rode away like nothing happened.
I look back. It looked like they were okay.
But back to the bikes.
For myself, especially for just how rough it got, because it's such a short lap time and how many people were there, quite frankly, it was a little dangerous, I felt, just with how soft the bikes are. And knowing, because I've been riding the Kawasaki and the Yamaha quite a bit, like set up with my suspension and stuff, knowing what those bikes can handle, and then going back to stock is a little, just they're all much too soft for kind of what I'm used to and what I want.
Yeah.
And so I kind of really had to check up and just couldn't ride as aggressive and as fast as I would have liked to. But none of them were dangerous. It's just I couldn't ride to what I'm used to riding.
Yeah.
I guess.
That's why you're going so slow around the turns.
Yeah.
Not talking about the bumps.
I got to go back to my personal bike, which was, I think I'm the only one that did that.
So what did you like? Stock bikes.
Just basically what Trevor just said is my personal bike is much firmer.
Yeah.
And I just felt safer making a mistake, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Where I could just overjump something or maybe, charge into something and miss a little bit and not worry about bottoming out and having to deal with that. And it's typical of the XC bikes for me over the years. It's the motocross bikes tend to be too stiff and the XC bikes tend to be too soft, and I tend to end up somewhere in the middle, and that's exactly what I felt when I jumped back on my bike.
Yeah, and Todd does all my suspension, so he kind of knows what I like in comparison to what these stock bikes are set up as. But yeah, I tend to run much stiffer than these stock off. More, say, probably closer to a motocross setting than a true off-road setting, I would think.
And I really think that they're trying to set up bikes that are going to work in the woods with roots and cheddar bumps and rocks. Like that there was that one section going back in the gully and stuff that was just kind of all, I don't know how, I think it kind of polished itself off. It wasn't all kind of just loose rocks, but in our morning races, Todd, you remember this, it was all, those rocks were all kind of loose and stuff. And that's where those bikes work really, really good. If, for me, because I'm used to it being like softer and going through, it's like, you don't feel the rocks that much. And
yeah, I think you passed me there as well.
Because I was on a nice mushy bike and it went.
I remember all the places that this happened, but I think that was one of them. But yeah for sure.
But yeah, it's super. Like I said, good. Good data test, and like I said, I can't say enough about like the SRA Grand Prix. I don't like racing, but I had a lot of fun riding around. I'm going to get some of my buddies to come back out and. That was super good, and it's amazing. Just that you can take that. Like I can take a stock bike and go ride at that level. Gordon Ward used me to wipe his butt with and just ran away, but that's just to be expected these days. Yeah. But such really capable machines, and if I had one bike and I had it. I would, like I said, I'd go ride it. I'd do these little changes, figure it out. And then it's like, now each one of them, I have like one more level of setting that I would like to do. And I'm not even sure that it's going stiffer on the suspension, even though you race guys all want to do this. But I wouldn't know until I tried it. Mm-hmm. And that's a point where I'd like to kind of spring one up a little bit, but I'm hoping to lose weight and get back down. I really, that's why I don't get bigger pants either. I just push on the button because I'm really hoping to go. I don't want to give up and go the other direction.
Just as a suspension guy, I want to say something here. We don't accept desired weights. Okay, so look, I get this call all the time. Look, I weigh 250, but over the summer I'm going to get down to like 185. So I don't think I need springs. And this happens all the time, Jimmy. So. Just buy the springs and be done with it. You're fat, and that's it. And that's all. So.
Yeah, well, I have made some pretty valiant efforts. I'm getting back there. The problem is like so many pairs of pants to buy. It's like I'm not caring about.
Yeah. No, I have like 3 sets of pants myself.
But so, anyways, if you're watching this live and you have questions about what we're talking about now. Of course, you can put it in the chat, and we'll come back to it and get to it. But if you have your questions and want to know a little bit more about these bikes, in the second hour of the show, we're going to dive in that. I will be around to answer your questions. I'm sure Trevor will as well if it's not past his bedtime. It's at like 8:00.
It's cutting it close.
Cutting it close, right? Yeah. So any other things that you guys just like kind of off the top of your head, something that you'd say, hey, I rode all these bikes and I want to tell you this. And so, Brett, I'm going to go with you first.
I think the biggest takeaway for me was actually how close each one of these bikes is to being, I mean, just kind of race ready right out of the box. And how, you know, I mean, you know, Jimmy, I've been riding this type of stuff, you know, with you back in, I don't know, the various different
90s.
Yeah. Yeah, in the 90s, early 90s, maybe even late 80s. But I don't think I ever did a test across multiple bikes where I came away thinking that every one of those bikes, while still an individual and unique and has its puts and takes, there wasn't a bike that we rode that I couldn't absolutely fall in love with just by making, you know, just my normal, you know, adjustments. And for me, a lot of that is just kind of the you know, adjusting to fit my physical size. Putting the low pegs on, tall seat, bars in the forward position, little taller bars. I mean, I think every one of those bikes, I could do that, have Todd do the suspension, and I'd be race ready. And I don't think I can ever really remember a time where I didn't kind of come out of it thinking, you know, hey, 3 out of those 5 bikes are great. 2, maybe not. But this one was really one of those groups where there's really there's a bike for everybody, and every bike is for everybody, if that makes sense. Like, you could absolutely take any of these bikes and make it perfect for you. There's not a loser in the bunch. I was really impressed. There's a couple that I just had ridden some previous generations of those bikes and thought, I don't know if that's something I'm going to really love. But I didn't feel like that. Not at all.
Jeff?
I was the last thing I was surprised. I really liked the bike that felt the heaviest, which I've never been that guy thinking that I really wanted a heavier feeling bike. But I really felt comfortable on the Kawasaki, and it's the one that, even though on the scales it may not be the heaviest, to me it felt like it had more weight, but I still liked it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Brian 100%. I came in it kind of, you know, thinking one way, but for me, I haven't spent a lot of time on the Austrian brands, so I was pretty excited to get on the gas cast. I personally had never rode one, you know, besides a KTM here and there, but I agree. I think there wasn't a loser in the bunch. I kind of went back to ergonomics of it and just, you know, my height, my weight. For me, the Cowie was like, I jumped on it and I felt like I was at home. Like, you know, a couple minor little tweaks, but for me, that was a bike that I couldn't believe how comfortable the bike was. And getting back to the weight towards it a little bit, I mean, it felt just so planted in the back, you know, that bike, and the motor and everything on it. But at the end of the day, I agree with Brent. I mean, there's no losing the bunch. I think you go to the dealer and there's a certain color you like, or you sit on them and it feels a certain way, you're stoked. I mean, it's a great decision on any of those bikes.
Yeah. And Todd?
Yeah, I hate to be a homer and just cop out, like, agree with everybody, but all the bikes are really good. Like, and it's sad to say, like, I come from an era, and I'm old enough to remember when all the bikes weren't very good necessarily, and there was one really standout bike that, you know, and like back in the 80s, it was the Hondas and this and that, but you could literally, and I've never had an opportunity to ride all of the bikes on one day like this, and it was pretty shocking to me to think that, like, all of them I'd be excited to own. Like, just to figure it out and kind of work on their quirkiness and deal with any of the issues that they have. And I think all of them could be a very good race bike given a little bit of time and not a lot of money, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Like, to compete in the expert class in any age group or even in the pro class, you'd be surprised of how little money you'd have to spend. And we've kind of proven that with Trevor and the best of the desert bikes and stuff like that, where you don't really need to do as much as you think you do. These bikes are very good. If you target your modifications based on certain needs, you won't have to spend a bunch of money to have a very competitive motorcycle.
Yeah, and I'm gonna jump in and let Trevor finish this section off. But it's like, so for me, and I would, every one of these bikes that get the Jimmy customized mods. I put flex handlebars on all my bikes. Fast Company sponsor the show, but it's just, that's something I need for my wrists to be able to ride as much as I do. and it's a comfort thing. And so anytime I started talking about comfort, like the Honda, I know how to make it go away. I don't think any of these bikes I don't think any of these bikes need a steering stabilizer, but I don't think it would hurt any of them. That's something I do on almost all of my bikes. Some of the quirkiness with, like, whether it was the hydraulic clutch or the cable clutch, some of the stuff I felt, there's ways to fix that. I'm not afraid to throw a recluse clutch in my bike, and that's because I'm not a very good rider and I'm old. Everybody knows this, right?
Agreed.
And then I have my tire picks, but you're wearing tires out. You can change that stuff. There's so many little things you can do, but those are the things I would do, and I could do them to any of the bikes, and they would at the end of the day, at the end of my adding, it's probably about $2,000 worth of Jimmy mods onto it. They'd all be the same bike, just be a different color and have a different brand name on it. But you would ride it, and I would turn them into the same. It'd have really smooth power, really long pulling power, and and from doing this for a long time too as well. Doing these kind of comparisons, there was always like a turd, and there was always something that really stood out as a winner. And this group, not the case. Not the case at all.
No, I think almost everyone had a different winner and a different last place and different second. Like, all four of you guys at the end of the day were like all mixed match. Like, there's definitely not one clear winner or last place bike.
Yeah, and that's why I hate calling these a comparison or a shootout. Not that it's politically incorrect to say that kind of stuff anymore. It was a damn shootout. We took the bikes out and we shot shit out of them. Yep. And they, in reality, our job isn't to pick a winner. I mean, because who cares what Jimmy likes? It really doesn't matter. It's like, let's do our best to kind of describe them. It's like let's say that, hey, this one has smooth power. This one's a little, snappy. This one felt light. This one felt heavy. The things that people want to, and I know everybody wants to know which one went the fastest. Like, we didn't take it out to the dry lake bed, and I didn't pull my phone out while I'm going 106 miles an hour and video it or whatever. But it's, the idea here is to kind of give people a feel for the bike. So if you have questions about, does this bike feel like this or feel like that, like, collectively we can answer that, and that's the goal in our videos. Each one of us shot an individual video where we talk about what we liked and didn't like, and this was the first day. And I did that, and the next day my order kind of like it wasn't that far off. It just kind of went the other direction. So it would have been awesome to have all you guys out riding them, but I took over.
So, did a fine job.
Maybe next time. So hey, thanks for joining in, and we'll hopefully have you guys back out pretty soon, and feel free to chime in tomorrow or next Tuesday or some other Tuesday when we make this thing go live, and we'll go from there. So
absolutely, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks for having us out. That was a fun day.
Awesome.
Yep. Lots of fun.
So everybody, like I say, if everybody watching this, this is our first hour of the episode. The second hour, we're going to be doing it live. We'll take your questions. We will answer all kinds of questions. Maybe do a roosterendo. I don't know. We probably will have less technical difficulties, but that's the way it works. So with that, everybody, we are going to see you after this commercial break.
The defending champion, the all-new Yamaha YZ450F.
What's up, Moto Buddies? Mike here from Taco Moto Co. What is the Taco Touch? It's the best service in the industry. Virtually 24/7 tech support via email or text, and it's like having a dirt bike doctor on call every day of the year, helping you fix your bike or recommend parts or setups for you. If you've ever received an order from us, you know that the Taco Touch extends to our fulfillment, and our orders come with the coolest stickers that you've ever had, buying parts from anybody before, and a handful of root beer barrel candies. All of our Taco Moto Co. branded components come with a no questions asked lifetime warranty, and we'll even extend out the warranty of other manufacturers, OEM, and aftermarket parts where we can, sometimes for life. We test and tune endlessly and exhaustively and obsessively. We're trying to destroy everything that we can before you get your hands on it, to look for weaknesses and to improve it, or to make recommendations to the manufacturer. And if it's something that doesn't meet grade, then we don't offer it on the store. Everything that we carry is something that we have personally used, tested, and ridden, and raced, and knows meets the high Taco Touch demanding standard. Go out and get some adventure.
If you liked what you saw in this video, come check us out over at dirtbiketest.com on the webs. We have bike tests, product tests, a lot of fresh dirt, and you can even support us by clicking through our links. Hopefully, we'll see you out in the trail.